Hi everyone, it's Cathy Zielske. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I've got a card project featuring a little bit of stenciling and ink blending and a really simple die cut combined with a set of pre-printed sentiments that you can cut out and add to any card project. So let's take a closer look at the supplies that I'm using today. First up is a Miss You word and shadow die. This is another in the series that I have created for Simon Says Stamp that have this wonderful slab serif lowercase type style. And I'm using this stencil. It's called the Peony Bouquet. Really big, beautiful, bold flowers, but yet with delicate details. For my ink today, I'll be using some colors from Gina K Designs, and I will have all the supplies listed below. I'll be adding the color with these blender brushes from Simon Says Stamp. And then I've got this set of reverse sentiments. This is the Miss You set. And in this set, you get 2 of each of these cards. And the idea is that you can cut these apart and use them on card projects in any way you like. If you're not great at stamping on black cardstock and embossing in white, these are going to be your new best friend. For cardstock, I've got some Dusty Rose from Gina K and some Neenah Solar White. Also going to be using a little pixie spray to hold my stencil in place. So let's start there. I'm not going to spray this on camera, but I flip it over and just put it in a box that I keep in my craft space and add a nice coating to the back of the stencil. I'll let that set for about 30 seconds and then I bring it to the cardstock. And the nice thing about the pixie spray, it's low tack. It won't leave any residue behind, but it will hold your stencil in place, especially one with all these little delicate details inside the big bold flowers. You know, you want to preserve that and you don't want it to come up while you're doing your ink blending, and so pixie spray is the bomb. I decided to cut apart some full adhesive post-it notes just to mask off where the leaves are. You don't really have to do this because if ink overlaps, it's no big deal, but I just wanted a cleaner look. So I'm starting with my Dusty Rose color. I'm just going to load up my brush. I'm going to tap off excess just to make sure the color is exactly how I want it. And now I'm just going to blend. And here's the beautiful thing about this, and I'm speeding this way up because, you know what I'm doing here. You don't have to be really precise with it. You're just filling in the openings of the flowers. And really just by virtue of the stencil itself, you're going to press a little heavier here or there. I started a little darker in the center, but I knew I was going to bring in my second pink for the center of the flowers. And I decided to grab my teeny tiny blender brush. This is a different set, but I do use these little tiny brushes for things like this. I just wanted to go in where those berries were and add the passionate pink. It's just a bolder, brighter pink. And these little brushes, I know when I first got this set, I thought, where will I ever use these? Case in point, I guess I use them for things like this. So they work great. Now I'm going to lift off the masks that I had over the leaves, and I'm going to take a paper towel and just kind of wipe away where the pink pooled on top of the stencil, because I don't really want to pull that pink into my leaves. And then I'll set up a whole new host of masking, but this time I'm not getting as fancy. I'm just covering up the flowers, and I'm going to go ahead and add the Jelly Bean Green ink, just 1 ink, so that I have nice, pretty, bright green leaves. And again, if a little ink gets here or there, it's really not a big deal. I did miss a few areas, so I came back in with another tiny brush just to make sure everything was filled in, and then lift and reveal. And that is my stenciled floral background. While that is drying, I am going to go ahead and cut out the layers for my sentiment. Oftentimes, I keep my word and shadow dies together because whatever I don't use, I'll just tuck aside. I have this bin in my craft space, which is my dining room, where I keep things I don't use, and that way I'm not going to lose my dies, and I speak from experience. So I'm going to cut out a second set of the Miss You from the Dusty Rose. But while my die cut machine is on my table, I'm going to bring in my A2 layers die, and I'm going to cut out a perfectly framed out and trimmed card panel that I want to use on my card. Now, there was a little bit of schmutz on there, and I thought, oh, that came off my plates, because sometimes if your plates are dirty, it will transfer. So, the Mono Sand Eraser. A crafter's best friend for cleaning up little errors like this, because it just takes the top layer of the paper off. It doesn't really hurt the paper. You're not going to notice it. And just like that, you'll never know it was there, except that I told you. So I'm going to dab on a little liquid glue to the back of my die cut. And I like using liquid glue for stacking die cuts because it just gives me a little more wiggle room, because sometimes I don't place things down in the perfect, position. And when it's liquid, you have a few seconds before it gets really permanent to wiggle and place it exactly where you need it. And I also like building right onto the shadow layer. Now here for the tittle, it's hard for me to say that without laughing. I like to build the tittle on the shadow layer as well, because it's hard to stack tittles. Are you with me? A little pro tip, if you have any parts of your die that aren't clean, you can use your reverse tweezers and just go along the side to remove some of those little stragglers. Now for cutting out my reverse strips, you can do this on your paper trimmer, it's no problem, but I go old school. Because I'm kind of good at this, I've been doing this for a really long time. You get a metal ruler, you line it up so you can see exactly where you're cutting, and you press down really hard on your ruler, and you press down equally as hard on the X-Acto knife. I'm going to flip it and repeat the process. For me, this is a really quick way to get a clean cut, but now I can just cut it down, and that I like to do on my paper trimmer. I line up the rightmost character and cut, and I line it up right there with the plastic guard. And that gives me a beautifully trimmed cut. And then I just am going to keep all of these things in a little plastic sleeve so I don't lose them. Now this is printed on white cardstock. So if you don't like that white core after you cut it, easy peasy. Grab a black pen and just carefully color the sides to cover up that white cardstock. I'm going to prep my card base. This will be a top folding card, US A2 size, which is 5.5 by 4.25. I like to do the first score line with the Score Buddy tool, but then I like to use my Teflon bone folder to get that non-marring crease. And I always tape my card bases closed. I don't like them to pop up while I'm trying to line things up. It's a personal preference here, but it helps. It helps. Every little bit helps. It's part of my process. There you go. Now I've got some foam tape on the back of the panel, and I'll just line that up, and look at that lovely, what is it, about a 1/4 inch of white space to frame that beautiful image. I've got thin foam squares on the back of my stacked die cut, and I will line this up. I wanted there to be about equal distance from the descender of the Y to the right of the S, and I brought in my T-square just to make sure that was straight before I pressed down, and then popped up the sentiment with the same thin foam adhesive right underneath. And that's the finished card project. I think this is a really simple project to try, just adding a little bit of color through a stencil, topping it with a stacked die cut and a pre-printed sentiment. Thanks so much for watching today. I would love to have you become a subscriber to my YouTube channel. And if you do subscribe, be sure to hit the gray bell below the video so that you don't miss the next time I post. Here are a couple other videos that you might be interested in watching. Thanks so much and have a great day.